Hola amigos, this is Level 12, and today we are back with our second installment of WW1 Hetalia edition. Today's episode is called Under the German Eagle and the Christmas Truce, where we will look at the first major battle of the war and then after effects it caused. So this chapter in my book was actually pretty unlinear, like it was kind of disjointed, so I've tried to make this video as linear as possible, but please forgive me if like one or two things are out of its proper order. So one of the biggest questions of World War I is who started it. Each country is going to tell the tale slightly differently, but for the most part they blame Germany. Like, even though Austria declared war on Serbia first, Britain and France both believed that Vienna, the capital of Austria, would not have done anything unless Berlin was pushing and backing it. Like, that was their running theory. And I don't know who Germany blamed the war on. Part of me is thinking it's Austria, but I have no proof for that. Not to mention, Germany had been trying to disrupt the Entente for years at this point, like since the early 1900s. See, Germany didn't like the idea of being surrounded by countries he considered his enemies. So, for years, Germany had been meddling with France and Russia to try and get them to turn on Britain. This actually worked on the Russian side to an extent where tensions started heating up in Persia, but on the French side, these attempts failed because the petty rivalry France and Britain had for years meant nothing when trade was concerned. So, when Germany declared war on France drew up a couple of war plans. There were three basic goals set in place for France. The first plan was to mobilize faster than Germany, which it more or less did, but it underestimated the force size. The second was to deploy forces concentrating on either the east or the northern side of France. This became known as Plan 17 and was meant to attack Germany through Alsace-Lorraine. Here, their third war plan, which was to make contact with the enemy, would be initiated. This is where things went a little awry for the French, and we will get back to why it went to awry. We just gotta go around a couple humps, because again, this was not a very linear chapter. The best way to describe Germany prior to the outbreak of World War I is that of a conspiracy theorist given like way too much power, because before World War I, it already had plans drawn up on how to invade France. These were called the Schlieffen Plans, at least the one we're going to discuss, which was to go through Belgium. This was for a few reasons, not the least of which being Belgium provided access to the sea, where Germany got a lot of its raw goods, like from Chile, to make weapons and materials, and it was just afraid it was going to get blocked. However, Germany wasn't going to invade willy-nilly. It actually asked Belgium if it would join the war via the side of Germany, yet Belgium had declared itself as neutral, treating every country as an enemy, which is one way to do it. Germany, displeased with this arrangement, thus threatened Belgium with an ultimatum that basically was surrender or suffer the consequences. And Belgium was just like, no, I will not surrender. Belgium still did not agree, and Germany implemented the Schlieffen Plan to invade Belgium. It's great. Now, aside from the Schlieffen Plan making a lot of incorrect assumptions, the biggest thing it didn't account for was Belgian neutrality. All other European powers had respected Belgium's neutrality and expected every power to do so. When Germany invaded Belgium, it sparked England to be like, how dare you invade gallant little Belgium? That's how they called it in my book. I say we must defend Belgium and help our French allies. This officially deployed troops from Britain to France to help in the war. Now back to the Schlieffen Plan and why this really screwed over the French. Simply, France didn't know Germany was going to come through Belgium. Again, Belgium was neutral, and it probably assumed Germany would respect that. Not only did this blindside France, but it also blindsided Belgium. So Germany first attacked at Liège, where Belgian forces believed the fort there to be impenetrable. It was made of thick concrete and had protected the place for many years. Yet the fort had not seen the damage new weapons could do. Guns could shoot faster, farther, and with more accuracy. Which, by the way, this isn't a tank. This is a gun. That is a gun. Tanks weren't invented yet, or at least not used. than older guns with less kickback as well. Not only that, but cannons and other heavy artillery, like machine guns, which I'm pretty sure that is, had been in rapid development since the last major European war, which I'm pretty sure were the Napoleonic Wars, if I'm not mistaken. On August 4th, 1914, Germany attacked the fort of Liège with a gun nicknamed Big Bertha that just destroyed the fort and paved the way for Germany's invasion into Belgium. This invasion is important for a few reasons. One, as the Germans pushed further into Belgium, it displayed Germany's brutality to not only soldiers but civilians as well. They executed priests and nuns at one point. Germany defended these actions by claiming the ones they executed were franc-tireurs, guerrilla snipers, when in reality they were likely the French army or confused German soldiers shooting at them. Second, this brutality made its way to the newspapers of France and Britain, where Belgian refugees told tales of the destructive German forces. These accounts fueled anti-German propaganda, and the French even started calling Germans the Boche. I don't know how to spell it, but it sounds like the Boche. What followed were multiple French retreats as Germany pushed more into France. It got so tense, in fact, that the French government moved offices from Paris to Bordeaux. This led to probably one of the most decisive battles of the war, the Miracle on the Marne. This is very important. So, a German named Moltke was in charge of giving orders at this point, but he was in Luxembourg and communications were not easy. They didn't have, radios yet. They had telegraph wires. And often intercepted by the French, Germany had 5 to 6 divisions set to invade the Marne. However, Moltke and 2 other German officers, Kluck and Bülow, had no idea what the other was doing. Thus, a gap between Kluck's and Bülow's occurred when, due to French reconnaissance by, early planes, the British agreed to help infiltrate so long as the French were willing. Because Kluck wanted to continue their plan for envelopment, the gap between him and Bülow widened, even as Bülow was retreating. It's great. Kluck eventually retreated as well, and the Germans became entrenched. This is where trench warfare started, by the way. This also establishes that this would not be a quick war as Germany had hoped, or had liked it would have been. They were very pessimistic at the start. Also, some argue this is where Germany truly lost a war, despite the fact Germany would later claim to have never lost a land battle. I would also like to mention, German citizens never learned of this defeat until after the war. The only victory Germany had from this was the fact that it retained much of France and Belgium, including important raw goods areas such as most of their coal mines. Also, Germany continued to occupy France and Belgium and often sent French and Belgian civilians to work in either concentration or labor camps. German occupation of France and Belgium was not pleasant to say the least, but these actions, again, really fueled anti-German propaganda. After the Miracle on the Marne, the war dragged on in trenches, which they were unpleasant. Between the months of November, December, and January, many soldiers would die to trench rot rather than enemy fire. Trench rot occurs when one's feet have been submerged in water for long periods of time, as you can see in one of the pictures, they're in standing water, without ever being dry. This can cause gangrene and make the feet and toes turn black and fall off. Gruesome. And it wasn't like you could just get out of the trenches to get ground. Between enemy trenches was an area known as No Man's Land, where the dead bodies, barbed wire, and later holes full of mud pocked the earth. Here, anyone seen trying to make ground was shot and killed on sight. Very few gains were made once the trenches were dug. Let's be real here. Also, the No Man's Land didn't originally look like this. It was after the implementation of tanks and cannons and other heavy artillery and deadly gas that the No Man's Land started to look like this. This is actually very much later in the war. In the beginning, it was just kind of muddy ground, but it was flat. There were no holes yet. Not at this time, there weren't. These horrid conditions prompted both the British and German governments to start Christmas drives for soldiers stuck in trenches. Things civilians were encouraged to donate were winter clothing, socks, chocolate, tobacco, cigars, letters, and other things to boost the morale of the soldiers. While these gifts definitely had a positive impact on the soldiers, it also made some homesick, which is the opposite of what they wanted. Many of these gifts arrived before or on Christmas Eve, so Christmas Eve night, many soldiers were just homesick. They had letters and chocolate, but what's that compared to your house? British soldiers hunkered down in their trenches for the night, heard, from across no man's land, a sound which had never been heard before, the Germans singing carols. This is where the Christmas truce started. In return, British soldiers began to sing the same carols back in English. A lot of people just assume it was Silent Night, like a lot of commercials and reenactments you see, it's just Silent Night, which I agree with that assumption because it's really recognizable in any other language. Which, by the way, I will link down below the German version of Silent Night because it's actually really pretty to listen to. However, the truce didn't end there. The next day, through the mist and fog, a German soldier bearing a Christmas tree with candles crosses through no man's land to the British side. Pretty much they just wanted a truce because it was Christmas, and for the Germans, Christmas was an important holiday. Despite reservations and even orders from London, British soldiers abandoned their trenches and greeted the Germans. After an initial awkward phase, the two sides actually got along, enough to where they were trading supplies, chocolate for bandages, tobacco for food, and took pictures with each other. One soldier even gave up his pickle helmet so the English soldier could take a picture with it the next day. It was cool. The most iconic and insane part of this is that they got along well enough they literally played soccer with each other, like Germans versus British soccer. The referee was a German officer though, so no bias there. The Germans won, by the way. And the truce went on for a few more days after Christmas where both sides were like, what now? Many soldiers wrote home about the event and their mixed feelings along with it. Neither Britain nor Germany were happy about this because, one, it undermined all the propaganda that was going on, and two, the war would only drag on longer if soldiers refused to fight. Thus, they implemented strict orders prohibiting either side from fraternizing with each other. Punishments were never fully disclosed, but I can bet you it was a bullet to the back of the head or a date with a firing squad. These orders were only enforced harder as Christmas time came around in the following years. By then, morale was extremely low that the events of 1914 seemed like a myth. And that's it for this episode. I hope you all enjoyed it. Again, I tried to condense it as much as I can to make it as linear and as important as I can. My book likes to go back and forth between what is currently happening and what the underpinnings of it, which I mean is interesting, but I know the importance of it, but if I'm trying to make a quick YouTube video, it's not that great to sift through the information. As always, I will link my sources below. I will give a slight warning. The video this time by the same company does depict some graphic images of both dead people and animals. I try and keep these videos PG-13. That documentary does not, so just forewarning when you click on it. Anyways, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe for more random fandom things. Ciao, chicos.